We are with reasonable confidence live.
Yeah. I'm going to just go ahead and go, and I'm assuming that I will let us
Yeah,
know
yeah. Or if
that we
it
got
if
people.
it
Uh, we are back from our week off for the 4th of July celebration, and just to give us some downtime stuff to do. I am Old New Dude. He is.
Richard York, Asher's true-born son.
Uh, Welcome back. I hope everybody had a good week. Had pretty good discussion Friday night on book club, even though I can't stay up as late as Chris does. But I took the week off. I didn't read any Ice and Fire. I didn't. I just set it aside to give my brain a break from it. So it was nice. Got to deal with some of the stuff with the land. I mean, it was a pretty good week. But this is Sansa 4, and I'm not gonna lie, I didn't reread it. I'm waiting
Oh,
because
really?
yeah,
That's all right. I kept almost everything, so
yeah.
there's like
Here
a few
lately, I
sentences here or
mean,
there, like
most of
cut
the
out.
chapters we've been doing lately, you've covered pretty much all of it,
Yeah,
and
I
I
if there's a sentence or two here or there that I can cut without impacting the
yeah.
plot, then I'll go ahead and do
Well, I
it. But
mean, I used to read it and then listen to it, and then after a couple of times not doing the reread, going through listening to you read it, um, I get an on
fresh
the spot.
reactions.
Yeah, I get an
Yeah,
on the spot reaction or a thought
yeah.
in my head. Um, so
That's what LOL's been doing recently. He's
okay,
been doing some chapter reads and just not preparing, just being surprised in the moment. And
yeah.
anyway, yep.
So I like that a little bit better. Some things that I think of is stuff Lady Thistle said, and if she's the one that said it, she can pop it up in the hey pod. She can pop it up in the comments because it's hard for me to remember if it's an original thought or if somebody else said it. So the
Yeah,
only the
we're gonna
only thing
revisit
I
we're gonna
claim
revisit
is
her brilliant comment from the last Tyrion chapter in here.
oh man, she's mic drops all the time. I mean, I swear. She had quite a few mic drops Friday night for the little bit of time that I was on there. Um, at the end of this, I want to discuss something that she said on there because I got something to add to it. But okay,
Uh,
this is
and let's run through
Sansa.
let's let's run through some of these comments. They're pretty funny.
Yeah.
So anyway, Lady Thistle said, waving from the Riverlands. Chris the Crow said, "How did you get past the wall?" Lady Thistle said, "Some weird guy on an elk." Chris said, asking for a friend. Pod said, "Heyo," and Pod said, "I try to never think about anything ahead of time."
There you go. Uh, Especially when you take too many edibles. Um, but okay, Sansa 4. Take it away, Richard.
The southern sky was black with smoke. It rose swirling off 100 distant fires, its sooty fingers smudging out the stars. Across the Blackwater Rush, a line of flame burned nightly from horizon to horizon. While on this side, the imp had fired the whole riverfront, docks and warehouses, homes and brothels, everything outside the city walls. Even in the Red Keep, the air tasted of ashes. When Sansa found Sir Dantos in the quiet of the Godswood, he asked if she'd been crying. "It's only from the smoke," she lied. "It looks as though half the Kingswood is burning." So, I mean, we often see this concept of smoke and clouds blotting out the stars and stuff. And Sansa has plenty of reason to cry. I When I was first reading this, I was thinking it was about time for her to be informed of Bran and Rickon, but actually, the 2 chapters from now, Tyrion is going to say that he's going to inform her. But then George has also said these chapters aren't necessarily in order, so it's hard to say, right?
Yeah, I gotta have a talk with George.
Lord Stannis wants to smoke out the imp's savages. Dantos swayed as he spoke, one hand on the trunk of a chestnut tree. A wine stain discolored the red and yellow motley of his tunic. "They kill his scouts and raid his baggage train, and the wildlings have been laying fires, too. The imp told the queen that Stannis had better train his horses to eat ash, since he would find no blade of grass. I heard him say so. I hear all sorts of things as a fool that I never heard when I was a knight. They talk as though I'm not there, and he leaned close, breathing his whiny breath right in her face. "The spider pays in gold for any little trifle. I think Moonboy's been his for years." So that seems likely. The wine stain sort of foreshadows Dantos's death.
Right. Does this give any credence to on the Fire and Blood book mushrooms um, discussion of what happened? would how do I say it? Would that give him extra weight in what he has said? I hadn't read it, but I mean, I know there's three people telling what's going on. I know one of them's Mushroom, right?
Yeah, I think Mushroom is really the least reliable of the three.
Okay, all right,
The Septon specifically says that the kids definitely were Lenore's. I think is actually the most reliable one. He's the one that actually places the crown on Aegon's head. And I think he's the one who's telling the truth, and he's saying there was no indication of any romantic involvement between Rhaenyra and Harwin Strong, and the kids look just like Lenore. He's like no, I'm 100% certain.
right.
And I think he's really reliable.
Didn't okay? Don't I
The guy who's
remember that?
compiling them is deliberately the guy who's compiling these accounts is deliberately compiling them in a way to mislead you, right? And so he compiles them in such a way that you're certain it's the other way around. Even though he gives zero examples, he just goes, if I read between the lines in the other two, I think I can imply that they didn't look like him, that they were Harwin and she were carrying on, and that they're definitely bastards. Like he usually gives quotes from them to support his, but there are no quotes that he can give to support that. So he just tells you that if you read between the lines, it's certain. And it's like, and everybody just takes that as true, even though every other claim he makes, he backs up.
Right.
So it's yeah, I think.
Well, didn't you say that their grandmother,
to,
their grandmother, the queen that wasn't had black hair like a Baratheon? Yeah. Okay.
Had Baratheon black hair, and none of them ever tell us anything other than as I said, the Septon's kind of implying that they actually the dark hair that the kids does match Lenore.
I wonder why they changed that in the show.
Because they changed it because most people read it the way that the author intends you to read it. Like 99% of the time, and including my first read through, you believe that the kids are bastards. And it was really the coconut god that convinced me, and then Preston eventually got there as well. Okay. Yeah, that the coconut god on Reddit was like, So part of the evidence is an aquiline nose, and especially in male children, an aquiline nose is going to be a pug nose until their late teens. And so if that's your dominant feature, well, first off, the quote comes from Mushroom, the that they put in the show, the sooner or later you'll have one that looks like you. So that's from Mushroom, and I do think Mushroom's the least reliable of the three. The first time I read it, I was trying to go, well, what's probably going on here is that there's nothing salacious, and there probably is some real salaciousness, and so maybe he's true there, but then he exaggerates when everybody else is. That was how I kind of started off reading it. But after the coconut god went through and was looking at it, I was like, it's. There's actually nothing indicating that they're bastards, and the person most likely to know is 100% certain that they're not.
Okay. Sorry, I made us go off on a tangent.
Her paralleling Cersei. So Cersei has access to birth control and is deliberately choosing to usurp the throne, basically, right?
Right.
And so paralleling that would be the idea that the female has agency here, and why would she be motivated to betray House Targaryen and Valerian, right?
Okay, anyway. Bear with me for just a second. Okay, this is just a thought. I don't want to go too far into it. Okay, we got Baratheon-blooded children in Fire and Blood that people are calling bastards, and then we have. That aren't bastards,
right?
And in the book, we got
No, it's deliberately supposed to be, and there's 3 kids, and one's named Joffrey.
Well, now we got Gendry that everybody says is a bastard, but besides, I think he's trueborn. That people are calling a bastard, like those other children of Fire and Blood that aren't bastards or trueborn. Gendry's trueborn also. Sorry.
Well, I mean, Bran could potentially see that, right? It could potentially be known if that's true.
Don't tell Gray Area I said that because she hates that theory.
All right.
Okay, sorry.
He is drunk again. My poor Florian, he names himself, and so he is, but he is all I have. Is it true Lord Stannis burned the godswood at Storm's End? Dantos nodded. He made a great pyre of the trees as an offering to his new god. The Red Priestess made him do it. They say she rules him now, body and soul. He's vowed to burn the great Sept of Baelor, too, if he takes the city. This is probably true, but Dorcas and Tyrion don't seem really as certain as we are. As Lady Thistle mentioned in Tyrion's last chapter, Dorcas knowing the gods would burn without being sure if Stannis burned the Sept, when we know he made a huge display of burning the Seven, implies Dorcas's methods might include seeing well beyond the human informants themselves, to paraphrase Brendan.
There you go.
Let him. When Sansa had first beheld the great Sept with its marble walls and 7 crystal towers, she thought it was the most beautiful building in the world, but that had been before Joffrey beheaded her father at its steps. I want it burned. Hush, child, the gods will hear you. Why should they? They never hear my prayers. Yes, they do. They sent me to you, didn't they? Sansa picked at the bark of a tree. She felt lightheaded, almost feverish. They sent you? What good have you done? You promised you would take me home, but I'm still here. So on reread, Sansa's lightheaded from unfamiliar hormones, and the old gods might have sent Dantos. Or if we believe that Bran is sort of like Doctor Strange in looking at every possibility and finding the one that works. In a sense, Bran is everything is as Bran wanted it to be, right?
Right.
Dantos patted her arm. I've spoken to a certain man I know, a good friend of me, and you, my lady. He will hire a swift ship to take us to safety when the time is right. He is not a good friend.
No.
The time is right now, Sansa insisted. Before the fighting starts. They've forgotten about me. I know we could slip away if we tried. Child, Dantos shook his head. Out of the castle, yes, we could do that, but the city gates are more heavily guarded than ever, and the Imp has even closed off the river. It was true. The Blackwater Rush was as empty as Sansa had ever seen it. All the ferries had been withdrawn to the north bank, and the trading galleys had fled or been seized by the Imp to be made over for battle. The only ships to be seen were the king's war galleys. They rode endlessly up and down, staying to the deep water in the middle of the river and exchanging flights of arrows with Stannis' archers on the south shore. Lord Stannis himself was still on the march, but his vanguard had appeared 2 nights ago during the black of the moon. King's Landing had woken to the sight of their tents and banners. There were 5,000, Sansa had heard, near as many as all the gold cloaks in the city. They flew the red or green apples of House Fossaway, the turtle of Estermont, and the fox and flowers of Florent. And their commander was Sir Geard Morrigan, a famous southern knight whom men now called Geard the Green. His standard showed a crow in flight, its black wings spread wide against a storm-green sky. But it was the pale yellow banners that worried the city. Long, ragged tails streamed behind them like flickering flames, and in place of a lord's sigil, they bore the device of a god, the burning heart of the Lord of Light. When Stannis comes, he'll have 10 times as many men as Joffrey does. Everyone says so. Dantos squeezed her shoulder. The size of his host does not matter, sweetling, so long as they are on the wrong side of the river. Stannis cannot cross without ships. He has ships, more than Joffrey. It's a long sail from Storm's End. The fleet will need to come up Massey's Hook and through the Gullet and across Blackwater Bay. Perhaps the good gods will send a storm to sweep them from the seas. Dantos gave a hopeful smile. It is not easy for you, I know. You must be patient, child. When my friend returns to the city, we shall have our ship. Have faith in your Florian, and try not to be afraid.
Hey, quick thing. I thought ships were quicker than travel on land.
Yeah.
Because doesn't Cat beat Ned to King's Landing after leaving like a week later or something like that?
Yeah, I would agree.
Okay.
Yeah, it is a little weird that his vanguard's already there.
Yeah.
And we know that they're maybe I can't remember. Maybe Davos tells us something about some wind problems or something, but we know that they were kind of in a rush, right? That Davos would have taken his time and scouted out more and so forth.
Yeah. Well, in the books, Davos isn't in charge of the ships, so I mean,
yeah, that's why I say he would have if he were in charge, but he's not.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Sansa dug her nails into her hand. She could feel the fear in her tummy, twisting and pinching, worse every day. Nightmares of the day Princess Myrcella had sailed still troubled her sleep, dark, suffocating dreams that woke her in the black of night, struggling for breath. She could hear the people screaming at her, screaming without words, like animals. They had hemmed her in and thrown filth at her and tried to pull her off her horse. It would have done worse if the hound had not cut his way to her side. They had torn the high septon to pieces and smashed in Sir Aaron's head with a rock. Try not to be afraid, he said. So it's probably cramps, not fear, twisting and pinching. George loves to drop all these little clues.
Yeah. And I missed it completely. I mean,
there's more. I mean, he's done the feverish thing. He's done what essentially are cramps. All right, I think he does some more cramps here in a little bit.
Okay.
The whole city was afraid. The last time King's Landing had fallen, the Lannisters looted and raped as they pleased and put hundreds to the sword, even though the city had opened its gates. This time the imp meant to fight, and a city that fought could expect no mercy at all. Dantos was prattling on. If I were still a knight, I should have to put on armor and man the walls with the rest. I had to kiss Joffrey's feet and thank him sweetly. If you thanked him for making you a fool, he'd make you a knight again, Sansa said sharply. Dantos chuckled. My jonquil's a clever girl, isn't she? Joffrey and his mother say I'm stupid. Let them. You're safer that way, sweetling. Queen Cersei and the imp and Lord Varys and their like, they all watch each other keen as hawks and pay this one and that one to spy out what the others are doing. But no one ever troubles themselves about Lady Tanda's daughter, do they? Dantos covered his mouth to stifle a burp. Gods preserve you, my little jonquil. He was growing weepy. The wine did that to him. Give your Florian a little kiss now. A kiss for luck. He swayed toward her.
Hey,
Yep.
Dantos, for being a drunk, has a pretty good idea how things work at King's Landing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Sansa dodged the wet, groping lips, kissed him lightly on an unshaven cheek, and bid him goodnight. So notice he's clearly trying to kiss her on the lips there, right?
Right.
And later on, we will be told that he kisses her. Mm-hmm. And I've had people claim that Sansa's first kiss was not that. I'm like, I'm pretty sure it was.
Well, anyway. No, I mean, not to go too far off. I was in San Diego for my 22nd birthday. No. It would have been my 20th birthday. And we were at a strip club. And they told the stripper that was ordering our drinks and stuff, because you had the 2-drink minimum and everything, the watered down Pepsi, because there's no alcohol, because it was full nude. Mm-hmm. She went to give me a kiss, and I'm looking right at her. I'm like, hell yeah. And then she took my head and went, whack, and then kissed me on the side of the face.
Mother Royne, hello from Chicago. Hey. Hello, Mother Royne.
Sorry.
It took all her strength not to weep. No, that's all right. It took all her strength not to weep. She'd been weeping too much of late. It was unseemly, she knew, but she could not seem to help herself. The tears would come, sometimes over a trifle, and nothing she did could hold them back. So that kind of sounds hormonal, doesn't it?
I would think.
So for some reason, she's having tears come over almost nothing.
Yeah.
Anyway, the drawback.
I'm agreeing with you. There's
yeah.
a lot.
He's dropping little clues all over the place.
Yeah.
The drawbridge to Maegor's holdfast was unguarded. The imp had moved most of the gold cloaks to the city walls, and the white knights of the Kingsguard had duties more important than dogging her heels. Sansa could go where she would so long as she did not try to leave the castle, but there was nowhere she wanted to go. She crossed over the dry moat with its cruel iron spikes and made her way up the narrow turnpike stair. When she reached the door of her bedchamber, she could not bear to enter. The very walls of the room made her feel trapped. Even with the window opened wide, it felt as though there were no air to breathe. So this could be divine intervention, or it could just be more feverish hormones.
Right.
Turning back to the stair, Sansa climbed. The smoke blotted out the stars, there it is again, and the thin crescent of moon, so the roof was dark and thick with shadows. Yet from here she could see everything, the Red Keep's tall towers and great corner forts, the maze of city streets beyond, to south and west the river running black, the bay to the east, the columns of smoke and cinders, and fires everywhere. Soldiers crawled over the city walls like ants with torches and crowded the hoardings that had sprouted from the ramparts. Down by the mudgate, outlined against the drifting smoke, she could make out the vague shape of the 3 huge catapults, the biggest anyone had ever seen, overtopping the walls by a good 20 feet. Yet none of it made her feel less fearful. A stab went through her so sharp that Sansa sobbed and clutched at her belly. She might have fallen, but a shadow moved suddenly and strong fingers grabbed her arm and steadied her. So I completely missed all these cramps and hormone hints on many of my rereads. But there,
if you hadn't said it, I would have never known it.
Yeah. She grabbed a merlon for support, her fingers scrabbling at the rough stone. Let go of me, she cried. Let go! The little bird thinks she has wings, does she? Or do you mean to end up crippled like that brother of yours? Sansa twisted in his grasp. I wasn't going to fall. It was only you startled me, that's all. You mean I scared you and still do. She took a deep breath to calm herself. I thought I was alone. She glanced away. The little bird still can't bear to look at me, can she? The hound released her. You were glad enough to see my face when the mob had you, though, remember? Sansa remembered all too well. She remembered the way they had howled, the feel of the blood running down her cheek from where the stone had struck her, and the garlic stink on the breath of the man who had tried to pull her from her horse. She could still feel the cruel pinch of fingers on her wrist as she lost her balance and began to fall.
I think it's
She thought,
really odd that it has to be the intervention for both of them to be there,
yeah,
Sansa and the Hound to be on the roof. So yeah, I agree. It was divine, or not divine intervention, but intervention.
yeah. I mean, I count Bran as divine intervention.
Okay.
Once, when we caught my son being naughty, I burst out crying, and my own wolf, a dog named Tara, licked the tears off my cheek. Sounds like a
Oh
sweet dog.
yes. Oh, ask me about a cat when we're done with all this stuff. I got a story to tell.
All right. She thought she was going to die then, but the fingers had twitched, all five at once, and the man had shrieked loud as a horse. When his hand fell away, another hand, stronger, shoved her back into her saddle. The man with the garlicky breath was on the ground, blood pumping out the stump of his arm, but there were others all around, some with clubs in hand. The hound leapt at them, his sword a blur of steel that trailed a red mist as it swung. When they broke and ran before him, he had laughed, his terrible burned face for a moment transformed. Wow, that's some imagery right there. He's referring to them as others, and the hound is wielding a red glowing sword, basically.
Right. Well, I mean, I don't know if he says it here or in the show, but they could have took him.
Oh yeah,
That many
no,
people
it's
could have
here.
took him, but
It's here.
they were afraid.
He's about to say that.
Oh, okay.
She made herself look at that face now, really look. It was only courteous, and a lady must never forget her courtesies. The scars are not the worst part, nor even the way his mouth twitches. It's his eyes. She'd never seen eyes so full of anger. I should have come to you after, she said haltingly, to thank you for saving me. You were so brave. Brave? His laugh was half a snarl. A dog doesn't need courage to chase off rats. They had me 30 to 1, and not a man of them dared face me. She hated the way he talked, always so harsh and angry. Does it give you joy to scare people? No, it gives me joy to kill people. His mouth twitched. Wrinkle up your face all you like, but spare me this false piety. You were a high lord's get. Don't tell me Lord Eddard Stark of Winterfell never killed a man. So the term get usually refers to the baseborn.
I didn't catch that either.
Yep. See, Triple Targaryens, episode 1 and 2. Anyway. That was
What
his
shirt?
duty.
What shirt you got on? I can't see with the.
Oh, yeah, it's the Triple
Okay,
Targaryens.
so that'd be 3 then.
That was his duty. He never liked it. In fact, he actually tells Bran that, yeah, you're not allowed to like it.
Yeah, there you go, Chris.
Is that what he told you? Clegane laughed again. Your father lied. Killing is the sweetest thing there is. He drew his longsword. Here's your truth. Your precious father found that on Baelor's steps. Lord of Winterfell, Hand of the King, Warden of the North, the mighty Eddard Stark of a line 8,000 years old. But Ilan Payne's blade went through his neck all the same, didn't it? Do you remember the dance he did when his head came off his shoulders? Sansa hugged herself, suddenly cold. Why are you always so hateful? I was thanking you. Just as if I was one of those true knights you love so well, yes. What do you think a knight is for, girl? You think it's all taking favors from ladies and looking fine in gold plate? Knights are for killing. He laid the edge of his longsword against her neck, just under her ear. Sansa could feel the sharpness of the steel. I killed my first man at 12. I've lost count of how many I've killed since then. High lords with old names, fat rich men dressed in velvet, knights puffed up like bladders with their honors. Yes, and women and children too. They're all meat, and I'm the butcher. Let them have their lands and their gods and their gold. Let them have their sirs. Sandra Clegane spat at her feet to show what he thought of that. So long as I have this, he said, lifting the sword from her throat, there's no man on earth I need fear. Except
Hey,
your brothers.
I think it is he talks about true knights, but
Mhm.
as the story goes along, he is
Yeah,
the
yeah.
true knight. So
He and Jamie are sort of on a parallel track there, right? They both
yeah,
are inspired by their love of a good woman who values honor
right,
to try to live up to those knightly expectations.
right. Man, if Toodles is correct, and we believe he's correct, the Hound is in
Yep.
the
We're gonna
Erie
talk,
or
and I
yeah.
specifically discuss this in here pretty soon.
Okay.
Except your brother, Sansa thought, but she had better sense than to say it aloud. He is a dog, just as he says, a half-wild, mean-tempered dog that bites any hand that tries to pet him, and yet will savage any man who tries to hurt his masters. Not even the men across the river? Clegane's eyes turned toward the distant fires. All this burning, he sheathed his sword. Only cowards fight with fire. Lord Stannis is no coward. He's not the man his brother was either. Robert never let a little thing like a river stop him. What will you do when he crosses? Fight. Kill. Die, maybe. Aren't you afraid? The gods might send you down to some terrible hell for all the evil you've done. What evil? He laughed. What gods? The gods who made us all. All? He mocked. Tell me, little bird, what kind of god makes a monster like the imp or a halfwit like Lady Tamda's daughter? There are gods, and they made sheep so wolves could eat mutton, and they made the weak for the strong to play with. True knights protect the weak, he snorted. There are no true knights, no more than there are gods. If you can't protect yourself, die and get out of the way of those who can. Sharp steel and strong arms rule this world. Don't ever believe any different. Sansa backed away from him. You're awful. I'm honest. It's the world that's awful. Now fly away, little bird. I'm sick of you peeping at me. Wordless, she fled. She was afraid of Sandor Clegane, and yet some part of her wished that Sir Dantos had a little of the hound's ferocity. There are gods, she told herself, and there are true knights too. All the stories can't be lies. There's a god married to the trees, and like Jamie inspired by Brienne, Sandor will become her true knight, with a little help from Helen Reed.
Yes, sir.
See, Triplet Targaryens, episode 6. Yeah.
I think it's odd that we both thought of the exact same thing at
Yeah.
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 I've been hanging out with you too long, man.
Oh, yeah. That night, Sansa dreamed of the riot again. The mob surged around her, shrieking, a maddened beast with 1,000 faces. Everywhere she turned, she saw faces twisted into monstrous, inhuman masks. She wept and told them she had never done them hurt. They dragged her from her horse all the same. No, she cried. No, please, don't. But no one paid her any heed. She shouted for Sir Dantos, for her brothers, for her dead father and her dead wolf, for gallant Sir Loras, who had given her a red rose once, but none of them came. She called for the heroes from the songs, for Florian and Sir Riam Redwine, Prince Aemon the Dragon Knight, but no one heard. Women swarmed over her like weasels, pinching her legs and kicking her in the belly. Someone hit her in the face, and she felt her teeth shatter. Then she saw the bright glimmer of steel. The knife plunged into her belly and tore and tore and tore until there was nothing left of her down there but shiny wet ribbons. When she woke, the pale light of morning was slanting through her window, and she felt as sick and achy as if she had not slept at all. There was something sticky on her thighs. When she threw back the blanket and saw the blood, all she could think was that her dream had somehow come true. She remembered the knives inside her twisting and ripping. She squirmed away in horror, kicking at the sheets and falling to the floor, breathing raggedly, naked, bloodied, and afraid. But as she crouched there on her hands and knees, understanding came. No, please, Sansa whimpered. Please, no. She didn't want this happening to her. Not now. Not here. Not now. Not now. Not now. Not now. Madness took hold of her. Pulling herself up by the bedpost, she went to the basin and washed between her legs, scrubbing away all the stickiness. By the time she was done, the water was pink with blood. When her maidservants saw it, they would know. Then she remembered the bedclothes. She rushed back to the bed and stared in horror at the dark red stain and the tale it told. All she could think was that she had to get rid of it, or else they'd see. She couldn't let them see, or they'd marry her to Joffrey and make her lay with him. Snatching up her knife, Sansa hacked at the sheet, cutting out the stain. If they ask me about the hole, what will I say? Tears ran down her face. She pulled the torn sheet from the bed and the stained blanket as well. I have to burn them. She balled up the evidence, stuffed it in the fireplace, drenched it in oil from her bedside lamp, and lit it afire. Then she realized the blood had soaked through the sheet into the feather bed, so she bundled that up as well, but it was big and cumbersome, hard to move. Sansa could get only half of it into the fire. She was on her knees, struggling to shove the mattress into the flames as thick gray smoke eddied around her and filled the room when the door burst open and she heard her maid gasp. In the end, it took 3 of them to pull her away. It was all for nothing. The bedclothes were burnt, but by the time they carried her off, her thighs were bloody again. It was as if her own body had betrayed her to Joffrey, unfurling a banner of Lannister crimson for all the world to see. Mr. Crow said 4 and Jeffrey said 5. When the fire was out, they carried off the singed featherbed, fanned away the worst of the smoke, and brought up a tub. The woman came and went, muttering and looking at her strangely. They filled the tub with scalding hot water, bathed her and washed her hair, and gave her a cloth to wear between her legs. By then Sansa was calm again and ashamed for her folly. The smoke had ruined most of her clothing. One of the women went away and came back with a green wool shift that was almost her size. It's not as pretty as your own things, but it will serve, she announced when she pulled it down over Sansa's head. Your shoes weren't burned, so at least you won't need to go barefoot to the queen. Dany got a new dress fit for a queen. Sansa kind of did the reverse. So she's now fit for a marriage to the king. Right? And Dany marries Khal Drogo, and it's the arrangement of the marriage, and it's just now this is causing the arrangement of the marriage, right?
Right.
And they both have a scalding hot bath and a new dress, essentially.
Right. Not to get gross or anything about it, because I can't stand reading this kind of stuff. Are we told that Dany flowered before the wedding?
Presumably.
I can't remember.
I think it's implied that she's of appropriate age.
Okay.
What's the best way to get rid of a whole mattress? Shove it in a fireplace. That's Charles.
Right.
Valonqar showed up for the end.
Hey, how you doing, Valonqar? Hope you had a good 4th of July.
Cersei Lannister was breaking her fast when Sansa was ushered into her solar. You may sit, the queen said graciously. Are you hungry? She gestured at the table. There was porridge, honey, milk, boiled eggs, and crisp fried fish. The sight of the food made Sansa feel ill. Her tummy was tied in a knot. No, thank you, your grace. I don't blame you. Between Tyrion and Lord Stannis, everything I eat tastes of ash. Now you're setting fires as well. What did you hope to accomplish? Sansa lowered her head. The blood frightened me. The blood is the seal of your womanhood. Lady Catelyn might have prepared you. You've had your first flowery, no more. Sansa never felt less flowery. My lady mother told me, but I thought it would be different. Different how? I don't know. Less messy and more magical. Queen Cersei laughed. Wait until you birth a child, Sansa. A woman's life is 9 parts mess to 1 part magic. You'll learn that soon enough. And the parts that look like magic often turn out to be the messiest of all. She took a sip of milk. So now you're a woman. Do you have the least idea of what that means? It means that I am now fit to be wedded and bedded, said Sansa, and to bear children for the king. The queen gave a wry smile. A prospect that no longer entices you as it once did, I can see. I will not fault you for that. Joffrey has always been difficult. Even his birth. I labored a day and a half to bring him forth. You cannot imagine the pain, Sansa. I screamed so loud that I fancied Robert might hear me in the Kingswood. His grace was not with you? Robert? Robert was hunting. That was his custom. Whenever my time was near, my royal husband would flee to the trees with his huntsmen and hounds. When he returned, he would present me with some pelts or a stag's head, and I would present him with a baby. Not that I wanted him to stay, mind you. I had Grand Maester Pycelle and an army of midwives, and I had my brother. When they told Jaime he was not allowed in the birthing room, he smiled and asked which of them proposed to keep him out. Joffrey will show you no such devotion, I fear. You could thank your sister for that if she weren't dead. He's never been able to forget that day on the Trident when you saw her shame him, so he shames you in turn. You're stronger than you seem, though. I expect you'll survive a bit of humiliation. I did. You may never love the king, but you'll love his children. I love how she compares Joffrey fathering Sansa's children with Jaime fathering her children.
Yeah.
So Valonqar said, I did a relaxing weekend. I hope you guys did as well.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
I mean, most of it I spent driving, but it wasn't too bad. The heir of House Tyrell, Charles. This is one of the few times Cersei is somewhat kind of honest, more human. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I just think it's hilarious that she just blatantly compares, Joffrey being the father of the children with Jamie supporting her.
Right. Well, I
I
mean,
love it.
not to harp on the Gendry thing. Robert wouldn't have been there to see Gendry being born and swapped for a dead stillborn baby.
Okay.
I know. Sorry.
Yeah. I love his grace with all my heart, Sansa said. The queen sighed. You'd best learn some new lies, and quickly. Lord Stannis will not like that one, I promise you. The new High Septon said that the gods will never permit Lord Stannis to win, since Joffrey is the rightful king. A half smile flickered across the queen's face. Robert's trueborn son and heir, though Joff would cry whenever Robert picked him up. His grace did not like that. His bastards had always gurgled at him happily, and sucked his finger when he put it in their little base-born mouths. Robert wanted smiles and cheers, always, so he went where he found them, to his friends and his whores. Robert wanted to be loved. My brother Tyrion has the same disease. Do you want to be loved, Sansa? Everyone wants to be loved. I see flowering hasn't made you any brighter, said Cersei. Sansa, permit me to share a bit of womanly wisdom with you on this very special day. Love is poison. A sweet poison, yes, but it will kill you all the same. So personally, I think Sansa's right, and Cersei is fooling herself.
Mhm.
And up next, we go straight back to Jon with Clash 53, Jon 7.
Mhm.
Lord Corran has shrewd eyes, and after Bran learns not to fear the dark, he visits him.
That was actually a really good chapter.
Yep.
I do think it's another telltale that Cersei's kids don't like Robert, but Robert's kids like Robert.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I always had that one. I mean, the looking in the books to see the Baratheon, and anytime that was married to a blonde-haired person, it was still dark. And back in my mind, I'm like, well, what if they were secretly Baratheon babies, but the Targaryen side of Cersei overcame it, but then with the fire and blood and the babies that were descendant of House Baratheon that were thought to be bastards, they kind of blew that theory out of the water.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That makes sense. Or added even more evidence than existed in the past. Anyway.
Yeah. It was a little rabbit hole. Some of them don't go very far.
Not gonna lie, I missed this last week. Oh, thanks.
I kind of did too. Chris here at the house was a little bit depressed on it because he's like, man,
Oh, thanks, guys.
we appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, quick thing. Lady Thistle was talking about Tormund on book club Friday night, and every time that she had to go silent and not say anything because she's talking to her family, we didn't know what to talk about. So she had to come back on real quick and say something and then jump back off. But the thing is, she was talking about the giant's babe, the giant that he climbed up into. She's saying that that was a woman of House Umber that had the giant on their sigil. He laid with it could be that he stole Crow's Food daughter, or just another girl from House
yeah,
Mormont.
isn't there a story of somebody being taken? Oh, and there's even a theory that one of the washerwomen is one of the missing Northerners. Yeah, because she's incredibly loyal to the Starks and offended by Theon.
Right. Well, I mean, the two things you got the he laid with the she bear, that would be House Mormont. The giant would be House Umber, and I'm strongly in defense. And the hill I die on is that Mormont is Lord Dustin, Willem Dustin. Well, and I say Willem Dustin was a player before he got married. So my thing is, Lady Mormont and the girl from House Umber, I don't know what her name is, he knew them long before he went north of the wall to become Tormund.
Okay, there's something Toodles brought up recently that I wanted to talk about, but you also had a story about a cat from the weekend.
Oh yeah, well, there's this cat that's been around the house for 2 years. The people next door bought it as a kitten, and then after a while they got tired of it and they set it outside. So we've been feeding a couple other cats in the neighborhood. My daughter has, and this gray one got attacked, and its eye just closed shut, and it just wasn't looking good. So we took it to the vet and got it in the garage. We're like, well, I mean, when we moved to South Carolina, the other two cats have homes that permanent homes that own them. They just come over here and say, hey, this cat has nobody. So, all right, we'll take it to South Carolina with us. So we put it in the garage, and the first couple of days it was kind of skittish. And then it'd come up to you, sit in your lap, you could pet it, it'd meow at you, love treats. It was like, okay, this is a really good cat. And then the last couple of days, I've got bites on my legs and scratches. If you don't pet him long enough, he gets pissed off and attacks you. So you have to sit there and pet him until he's ready to get down, or you're going to get bit. Well, this morning, I'm out there, and he's sitting in my lap, and his head is right here, and he just does that with his mouth wide open, that big old cat is, and them teeth. And them teeth are like that long in this cat. I'm looking at it, I'm like, oh shit. So I take my phone and I put it between his face and my face, and he got down, and I'm like, this cat's a vampire. Damn. So I don't know what we're gonna do with a cat. Oh, sorry.
No problem. Yeah, that's yeah. We we had some problems with animals ourselves over the past week, and my cousin's dog is terrified of tall men, and my dad and I are both well over 6 feet tall, so
yeah,
that's kind of an issue.
I know. I'm a short person at 5'6", but I'm never around people long enough to feel short. But at Ice and FireCon, when I met you, I'm like, damn, I'm short. Because everybody that's watching this,
but I'm pretty tall.
Yeah, everybody that's watching this that has not met Richard, he is tall and he looks like he's in really good shape. So I would not want to tangle with Richard because he looks like he can take care of himself.
You need a
yeah, you ain't lying, man. You gotta leave that cat. Yeah, well, I don't want to break my daughter's heart, so I don't know if we're just gonna take it up there and let it outside like it is here, or if we're gonna bring it in. It was $400 at the vet, so I'm hoping we can tame his little butt, get him fixed, and he'll calm down. But I don't know.
Okay.
His name is Sam.
So I wanted to say something about Toodle's recent write-up. So okay. I think you'd really like it. It's about Alice Karstark, actually. So
you need to send it to me.
One of the things that Roos says is that Domeric was an incredible horseback rider. That he was even faster than Lord Rickard's daughter. And Toodles points out that there's no way he was racing Lyanna. He was racing Alice. And this is supposed to be a hint to us that Alice Karstark is like half a horse and mistaken for Arya. Even John thinks that she kind of looks like Arya, right? Mm-hmm. And
it doesn't Melisandre think that it's a Stark coming to the wall? So okay,
yeah. And so then Body Armor says for the car ride.
We were talking about these. Got these little wraparound snake guards. The Chris said I need to get those put on my legs.
So Domeric was a squire who showed great promise. So he's probably he was also referred to as a man grown. So he's probably right around 16. Mm-hmm. So if he was racing with Lyanna Stark, he was like 3 or something, right? I mean, there's no way he was out racing Lyanna Stark as like a like a 2 or 3 year old, right? He's clearly telling you that Alice Karstark is a great horseback rider, and that's sort of relevant to the plot, right?
Right.
But a lot of people read it and they just assume that he's talking about Lyanna. Well, he also said it's kind of interesting that if you think of Roose as like somebody who's obsessed with Lyanna and somebody who knows what a great horseback rider Lyanna was, so much so that he could compare people across generations. Well, then there's actually Roos is referred to as having like short, strong fingers. And specifically, we're told that the reason that the Crannogmen are not good at jousting is because that they don't have the hands for it.
Right.
And there's times when Roos is specifically said to shout, and including when he says, "Stop this madness!" Right? And if you compare that to the "Stop this madness," Robert's voice boomed, and that's when we're told that battle commanders have these booming voices, and we're told over and over again that Roos is a great battle commander, and
right.
And so the implication is that Roos has a booming voice, that he's perhaps obsessed with Lyanna Stark. This is if you take the opposite view rather than the Alice Karstark view, right?
Right.
And so well, maybe maybe that implies that Roos would be a good jouster, that he might be short and strong, just as his fingers are short and strong, and that maybe could even be implying that he's the Knight of the Laughing Tree, or one possible interpretation of the Knight of the Laughing Tree.
Oh, damn!
Yeah, and the other Knight of the Laughing Tree interpretation I've heard is Preston says that really it should be Ned, right? That it's a story about Ned and Ashara, and as much about Ashara being impressed with Ned as it is about Lyanna being impressed with Rhaegar being impressed with Lyanna, or Lyanna being impressed with Rhaegar,
right?
And that it doesn't actually make much sense for Lyanna to be a great jouster, because it's 90% horseback riding, but we're specifically told that she wasn't allowed to carry a sword. Yes, she played with swords anyway, but could she really get away with jousting and practicing with a lance? And so the question is wouldn't it actually make more sense if it's actually Ned who's the great jouster? Anyway, it's
Well, I mean, anyway, jousting, even though it's mostly how you how you sit the horse, but you still have to have some type of. I'm not knocking her. I mean, Lyanna probably kicked my ass.
No, I mean, you still need interpretation. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying they're interesting alternatives that I've seen thrown out there.
Yeah, well, and jousting still requires some kind of upper body strength.
Right, and specifically, we're told that it's the strength of the hands that's the problem with the Crannogmen, right?
Well, I mean, you got to have a strong back too. You got to stop and think. You're getting tagged. You're going backwards this way. Your core has to bring you back up.
Yeah. Now, on the other hand, we're specifically told. Well, Ned claims that Lyanna wasn't allowed to carry a sword. We know that she was practicing the sword play, so maybe she was somehow and she was off riding all the time with Brandon, and so the idea that Brandon might have. We know that, so that brings the question: did Brandon actually, go? They ran off perhaps with lances and jousted together, or something makeshift that they could use to practice lances.
Hey, did you watch that TV show Full Metal Jousting?
No,
they only had one season. The smallest guy on there was one of their best jousters. He was. I mean, he was 100% the best horseman on there, and he had a really good seat, and he was knocking guys, I mean, a lot bigger than him on their butt, just because of his horsemanship. So, I mean, Lyanna could do it. I mean, because the guy wasn't that big at all.
That makes a good point. Why didn't Ned just compete without being anonymous?
Yeah.
I've often wondered if in fact, part of the points of these mystery nights is to get around some of the requirements of entry. We've seen in Dunk and Egg that sometimes they require that you be a knight, and certainly Ned wasn't a knight.
If I'm not mistaken, at the hands tourney, there were some that, or some of the tourneys that we were told
certainly
about.
they let Ned's men joust, and they weren't knights.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
so it seems to vary by tournament.
So, right. Well, it was the hands tourney, so that, I mean, of course they're going to let the hands men joust.
Sure, but we don't know what the requirements were at the Harrenhal.
I mean, it's still a good story. I mean, can you send that Toodles to me?
Sure. Yeah, it was pretty recent, so I should be able to find it.
All right. Yeah, if you could, I would. I love the stuff you send me. I do love reading.
Yeah, I mean, he said, don't get me wrong. I'm not claiming that Bruce is likely to be the Knight of the Laughing Tree. It's just an interesting that he's sort of tied and it's sort of implied that he's capable of a booming voice.
Here's the thing too. Domeric, his son, would be 16 or 17 ish. And that good of a horseman in this story, horsemanship is usually tied to skin changing ability or whatever. And there's theories about all the Brandon Stark bastards in the North. And I'm assuming that Roose Bolton is a shitty husband. There's not a lot.
And George loves to play with the idea of the oldest trueborn son not really being the trueborn son.
Well, that used to be the thing back in the day. Unless you were the High Lord, chances are your firstborn son wasn't yours because of the first knight, the King's Right, or whatever you want to call it. But I mean, that his first son being a bastard of Brandon, and then him dying, and that could be the reason why he didn't give a shit that he died. Maybe he might have known that, hey, this ain't my youngin.
Maybe that's reasonable. I mean, it's interesting that we're being told what a great horseman he was.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in this story, technically, I mean, every time we get told somebody's a good horseman, it tends to lead toward skin changing.
Pod points out that the Hound is clearly allowed to compete. It seems that Northerners of certain repute and others like the Hound can compete in tournaments. Well, at least in the recent ones that we've seen, and the Hound talks about how he's taken more horses than he can count from the guy that he goes right up to with no disguise, knowing they won't recognize him.
Yeah. Well, I mean, who's going to tell the Hound no? You're the master of the tourney or whatever that guy is called that lines up everybody, and you go to enter the list or whatever it's called. And they're not usually. I mean, they're usually like stewards or something like that. So you're gonna have this little guy, probably my size, that's good with paper and numbers and all that kind of stuff. And you can go up to him, and I'm gonna have the Hound, 6'5", whatever he is, 6'8", come up to me and say, "I'm entering the list." And I'm gonna look up like this and go, "No." I'm gonna say, "Go right ahead, man. Yeah, sure, no problem. Whatever you want to do." So yeah, I wouldn't tell the Hound no. Now, don't get me wrong. Now, I get mad. I'll fight anybody. I'll lose, but I'll fight anybody if I'm mad. But I mean, to be sober and not mad, I wouldn't come anywhere near the Hound.
Yeah,
because like I said, I'm 5'6", 180 pounds. It's kind of soft now. But okay. Oh yeah, Screw Eyes next time.
Yeah, we're going straight back to. It's a really interesting chapter. I think it might even be the one where Ghosts, or did we already do that one? The one where Ghost make Ghost cries. Did we already do that one, or is that this one? This might be this. That might be this one.
I think it's this one. Yeah, I think it's this one.
Yeah. So this is Bran time traveling. This is the second time he says my lord. He calls Corran lord, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he corrects him. First time he says I'm no lordly. This time he says I'm no lord. It's the shrewd gray eyes,
and it's the echoes of
it's the cries and echoes. It's like all the weird stuff happens in this one.
Well, I think it sets up. I mean, if John can cry inside Ghost, like we've said before, it could set up that Bran will be able to speak regularly inside Hodor. Yeah, and chances are the chapter that Bran speaks through Hodor, like a regular person, might be the chapter we get the time travel that messes up Hodor at the beginning. If what happens in the show, which I think George has confirmed, that's the way it goes down in the book, or at least the hold the door part of it.
It's implied that it could be slightly different, and some people have commented that maybe hold the door is like hold the past kind of thing, right? That it's not necessarily literally holding the door, or it could be that he has to hold the door open while everybody else gets through or something.
I have a Funko Pop, or Chris has a Funko Pop of Hodor holding the door, so it better be like that. So my Funko Pop is right. Well, I'm just saying. that when Bran speaks through Hodor, I think it's going to be a big enough chapter that's going to be the chapter that we find out what messes up Hodor
Yeah, that makes sense.
in the beginning. I think it's
Yeah.
all going to be connected. Whether it has
that makes a lot
anything
of
to do
sense.
with the door or whatever, I don't know. But I think that moment of him speaking through Hodor, it's going to be a really big chapter for Bran. It probably, if it happens like I'm thinking, it's probably going to be one of my favorite and least favorite chapters from Bran.
Yeah.
I don't want to
Yeah.
later
Yeah.
on
It's gonna be
in the
real.
wind. Yeah, I don't want to see in Winds of Winter or Dream of Spring a whited Hodor. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I think that would break my heart.
Oh, of course.
We were looking forward to the show. I ain't gonna lie. We were looking when they were doing all that walking, making sure we didn't see a Hodor. Yeah, that would suck.
Yeah, they didn't do a whole lot of people having to face their. You could have seen that become a trope, right? People having to face the people that they like the most coming back as whites or something, right?
Yeah.
George is going to do some of that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you saw a little bit of that at Hardhome when you get to meet all these people. You're talking to these people, like the woman. She was on Pitch
Mm-hmm.
Perfect 2. She's the German lady that was singing with the German guy with the German acapella group. I forget the name of them, but she has dark hair in the episode, blue eyes.
Yeah.
Um, I was like, this is a really good character. This character needs to stay. She's
Yeah.
a really good actress. And then boom, she dies. I was like, dang it. But you got to
Probably
see some of
Jamie.
the. Hey,
Pod. You're just trying to push buttons right there.
I'll wait till we get off to go cry. Jamie is the Princess Promise. Jamie is Azor High. Jamie is Last Hero. Jamie is Superman. Jamie's going to have a flaming hand. I don't know. All right. Wednesday. We're getting back on track here. Wednesday will be John. Oh, what is it? John 7. Lord Corn has shrewd eyes. I can't wait for this chapter. I might actually go ahead and reread that chapter before we
Corn has
do
true
it
eyes.
Wednesday.
Bran time travels, going back in the past after he's learned not to fear the darkness.
Yeah.
Ghost cries and it echoes, and it's associated with like ears and perking and sounds and listening and so forth.
Yeah, I think that's going to be one of the biggest things in the chapter is Ghost crying, because it's not supposed to happen. Yeah, I mean, it's got to mean something. It's got to be big. But okay, we'll see everybody at the same bat time, same bat channel. I have been Old Dude. He has been
Richard York, Asher One Son.
I want to thank Chris the Crow, the Valencar, Lady Thistle, Pod, Charles. I miss anybody?
Jeffrey? Did you say Jeffrey?
Yeah, Jeffrey. Sorry. Good thing I didn't call him Jeremy like I did that one time.
Say Mother Roy?
Oh no, I didn't. Mother Roy. I appreciate that one. See anybody else I missed?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. All right. Well, I mean, it's not like we got hundreds on here or anything, but not yet. All right. We'll see y'all Wednesday. Y'all be good and take care. Bye, guys. Bye, Richard.
Thanks. Have a good one.